On the 11th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me ancestral lineage line and constellation healings. Welcome to day 11 of the 12 days of Christmas, where every other day from December 1st to December 25th, you'll be receiving in your email box a link to a short video describing a practical spirituality tool, tip, or healing. And today we're going to talk about lineage line, ancestral healing, constellation healings, and why that's important for healing relationships, why that's important for unlocking blocks to your abundance, blocks to happiness, blocks to peace, blocks to truly expressing yourself authentically. So we're talking today, there's three things I really want to talk about: the ancestral healing, lineage line healing, which is super similar, and constellation healing, which is super similar as well. So when it comes to relationships, the I don't know if it's a sad fact or a fun fact, but it is a fact that the relationships we have today are habits of directly related to the habits, the culture, the rules, and then just the ways of being that we had in our first tribe, which is our first family, whether we are adopted or if we were, growing up in a family. And even for people whose parents treated them really well and they felt, I had a really great childhood, there's nothing wrong with me. And probably there isn't. But the truth is, there's nothing wrong with anybody. It's just that there's some misunderstanding and confusion. And so if you can go into healing relationships with that attitude versus they were wrong and they need to be punished, healing and regaining your power, healing difficult relationships and regaining your power is going to be a whole lot easier. So with that in mind, so let's give me an example of lineage line. I'm going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, and it's your heart, right? So when I first started this journey of spiritual healing and transformation, I excelled at the techniques. I excelled at the how-tos, but it was all in my brain and in my head. I was really smart. I understood the concepts really well. But actually applying them in my life, which is what I did from day one, get go, worked sometimes, but not all the time. And so when I chased it down, I realized that, and it wasn't me realizing it, I had a spiritual mentor, a spiritual teacher that whacked me on the side of the head and said, Grace, open your heart. You're coming from your brain. And that's a problem because when you come from your brain, it's all survival and you're not connecting with another person. You're not validating them. And so so I had to chase down, well, why was my heart so blocked off? Why was my heart something that I couldn't heal, right? And so that's where ancestral and lineage line healing comes into effect. And then constellation healing is after that, I think, in the order of how they do it. At least that's what really works for me and what works for my clients, right? So when I looked at, well, what does my heart feel like when it's blocked? So I went into deep meditation and I accessed my guides, and they showed me how, because I'm such an empath, and because my father was so real, so present, more than my mother is a little disconnected and distant. She was a victim of abuse, right? And so when you're a victim of abuse, it's not unusual. Plus, her personality type was wired to be kind of not embodied. So it's and that's where understanding comes in. And that's what prompted her to be a little distant. But my dad was real. And so I could feel him. And because I'm a deep empath and a deep feeler, I'm like, well, how do you operate your heart? Well, his heart actually, when I did the work, had a flap jacket on it, right? So in the war, he was in the Korean War and a little bit in World War II, but mostly in the Korean War. He was a scout pilot in Korea. that flew over the war zone where they were actively bonding. And he was the guy that radioed the coordinates to the caissons, the mortarmen that were shooting mortars to blow up people. War is not a pleasant thing, but I mean, humanity seems to like to do it. So my dad had to wire coordinates, send the coordinates. Oh, there's people and guns down here. Let's kill them. Right. In order to do that, you can't be connected to other people. You have to wall off your heart. And so, yeah, and my brother told me, the true warriors, true war heroes do not talk about their battles, at least not in my family. And the men and women that I've talked to, healing PTSD with other people and stuff, they don't really talk about it much, which is kind of a sad thing. But my brother said that when he got our dad to talk a little bit, and he said that when he was flying over the war zone and the bombs would drop, and then he'd fly by, that there would be pieces of body parts flying in the air, like still going up in the air from the explosion, and that he saw them. And so, can you imagine? Wouldn't you shut down your heart if you saw that you were responsible for that? Right. And so, that lineage line allowed me to have compassion for him for shutting down his heart. And then I realized that all I was doing was using his protective device because he was my mentor. And so I absorbed that strategy to shut down my heart as well. There were other things, but that was a big one. And so when I did the energy work and I did the healing to, called in my guides and the angels and raised my vibration and did the understanding and the forgiveness, all the things, right, that go into a full, complete healing, I was able to open my heart quite a bit, right? And so that's how a lineage line healing really, really works. And so at the same time, the magical, cool thing is when you're doing that, even though my dad has passed and you've forgiven him for those things as well, that heals him as well. So that's kind of like a lineage line healing. And so instead of me blaming him for being so mean, nasty, and ugly, for not having compassion, for not having understanding, I could understand why. And so it was a lot easier to forgive him and open my heart. And so energetically, the relationship between himself and me was better. And I will tell you, probably about maybe 3 months. So 3 months, 3 months, maybe a month after I'd done that healing, because I did some other healings as well, crystal ball healing. Um, uh, the man I spent 8 years with in a very loving relationship showed up into my life. And that's the power of lineage line healings. So how is that different than ancestral? Well, there's other habits, like on my mother's side, and this is not an unusual story. Most women, like they say, like 3 out of 4 women have been molested, and 2 out of 4 women have been totally raped, and nobody's like really talking about it. And because it's a secret, because you're protecting your family members, which are men, right? And so my lineage line, of my mother's lineage line, it was almost expected, as I did the work, which is really, really sick, which is really, really twisted, which is like, I'm so happy that I know how to heal this lineage line, because this kind of thinking's got to stop, right? But it was almost accepted that you were going to get molested by a male family member. Oof, right? Not good. So when I figured that out, then I realized the reasons why I had all the symptoms for being raped. I had all the symptoms for being molested. And once I realized that, I was able, actually had done the healing work for those things, not knowing who it was because there was a major block. That's another story, a longer story. But I treated the symptoms so that that man I was just telling you about, so we can have really good fun times in bed. Because what's a relationship without having fun in bed, right? And I was able to do that and actually be very, very connected and loving with him and truly enjoy it, which is not always something that a sexual abuse survivor can say, right? Um, so that's the kind of the healing that you do. So uh, lineage line, ancestral, ancestral is so when I did the work to realize that I had just kind of picked up the DNA habits of thought patterns of my mother. And then I realized it was her mother and then her mother. So I did a lineage line healing 7 generations in the past. Yes. And so once I realized that, then you can do another lineage line for the fathers, right? And then you can also do another lineage line if you married somebody and you have issues with them, like who doesn't, right? And you're wanting to really heal that, you can do their mother and father and that lineage line that way. So how's that? That's a lineage line. So we did ancestral lineage line, and now how do you do constellation healing? Constellation healing is like really cool. And what how I like to do it is in my mind's eye, I put together the members of my family. So first I did, and this is what I do with my private one-on-one clients and sometimes in my group clients, but mostly with my one-on-one clients that work with me 6 months to the year, because we have that connection and that trust and we have the time to actually go deep and unhinge, unhook, and heal our family dynamics. And that's really, really good for narcissism. If you've got a narcissist in your life, or if you've, to your dismay, found out that maybe you have some narcissism in you and you don't want it anymore, this is one way, this is like the way actually to really constellation really healings are really good with that. So how does that work? Is so in your mind's eye, you put everybody together in a big circle and you're all holding hands and you set the intention that you're connected heart to heart and that you've got this heart light connection. Now we've all heard of cords, right? Cords are typically toxic energy, controlling energies, negative patterns of control, basically an expectation that we all work to dismantle. And pulling from the principle that love melts fear, right? Love is always the strongest force on earth. And so when we do constellation healings, before we do the cords, I'm going to build up the love between us because soul to soul, heart to heart, that's what's there. It's all this human stuff on the outside that we all take personally. We think, you attacked me. Oh, you did this, you betrayed, you did these horrible, nasty things to me. And in the physical world, yeah, it's nasty. So constellation healing is kind of like group therapy, basically. And first you establish the heart to heart, soul to soul connection. And then you always start with yourself and you state your beef to each one of the people and let them retort back. And you just do relationship healing. And there's more to it than that. But that's the difference between ancestral healing, lineage line healing, and constellation healing. If that's of interest to you, join my workshops because all my workshops, the free and the paid ones, prepare you to do that kind of deep, encompassing work when you work with me in a small group or one-on-one. Sending love, sending light, sending laughter your way. Have a most marvelous day, and I think